The dog stared at the sewer every day without fail. Like clockwork, he was always there, standing in front of that opening that no one else seemed to notice. What seemed like a harmless routine to any observer was actually a reflection of something deep inside, something that the people around him couldn't see. What people didn't know was that this simple animal was trying to communicate something, or perhaps it was simply immersed in a solitude that it only shared with the sewer. And that brought up a question. Why did he look into that hole every day? What could be so significant about something so devalued? Of course, for many, this was just the scene of ordinary everyday life. People passed by without paying any attention to that simple scene, without even noticing the presence of that dog. Everyone was too busy with their lives, their routines, and their worries. They had their own problems to solve, their own challenges to overcome. How could they have imagined that that dog's gaze was so intense and full of meaning? It was a reflection of something greater, but no one saw it. For others, the sewer was just a dirty, unpleasant space. An opening in the ground, a place of waste. Nothing that aroused any interest. But the dog, on the other hand, seemed fixated, as if he were the only living soul to understand what resided there. When someone approached, he would move away slightly, but then return to his place of observation, as if attracted by something invisible. He was in no hurry. He didn't seem to be looking for anything that could be seen at first glance. It was as if he knew that something important was about to happen, although no one else believed it. This dog, who to many seemed just an insignificant and worthless being, had more wisdom than any of the humans around him. He was looking at something that was beyond what his eyes could really see. It was as if he knew that, however dirty and obscure that place was, it had a deep meaning, a link to something from the past, a memory that was lost somewhere and needed to be found. But the most intriguing thing of all was what the dog knew that the others didn't. What was really hidden there, at the bottom of the sewer? And when the hatch was opened, no one was prepared for what was to come. What was thought to be just another day of the dog staring into the sewer turned into something that defied any rational explanation. Why did he know that this day would be different? What was the reason for his unwavering patience? Why, every day, did he spend hours watching what no one else saw? That simple stare of a seemingly harmless dog was about to reveal something that all of us humans, in our haste and lack of patience, had overlooked. Something so profound that, when discovered, it would forever change the way everyone saw that place, and even the very nature of things we consider useless or worthless. The people around, who had previously ignored the dog in the sewer, began to realize that there was something more, something that was beyond their immediate perception. Perhaps it was a silent lesson taught by a being so simple, but with a wisdom that few could understand. He wasn't just there as a passive spectator. He was there as a witness to something greater, something that the rest of us hadn't paid enough attention to. And this led us to a great reflection. How many things in our lives, in our world, seem insignificant or worthless to us simply because we don't know how to look at them differently? What the dog was teaching us is that often what we consider lost or dirty can be exactly what we need to discover something new and precious. Something that was waiting to be found. Something that only he, with his patience and attentive eye, could perceive. Now, the moment the hatch was opened, everyone was ready to see what was really there. But one question still remained. Would we, as human beings, be able to understand the true meaning of what was hidden at the bottom of the sewer? What did the dog know that no one else did? What was it trying to show us? The answer was about to be revealed, and it would be something that, if understood, could completely change our perception of what is really valuable in life. When the hatch was finally opened, a deafening silence filled the air. The people, who until then had only been there to see what the dog was watching, were paralyzed. None of us were prepared for what was to come. What looked like a mere sewer opening became the stage for a revelation that few could believe, even the most skeptical. A thick, dark mist began to emanate from the bottom of the hole, a smell reminiscent of something buried long ago, something that shouldn't be touched, but somehow had to be. The dog, with its fixed, penetrating eyes, didn't move. He didn't react to it dramatically, like someone who had finally seen his greatest wish come true. He simply stood there watching, as if he had known, as if he had expected it. What he had seen there, what he knew was there, nobody knew. But time was about to teach us. The group of people, mostly locals, began to approach cautiously. But no one dared get too close to the hatch, to the hole that now exuded an almost palpable presence. What was inside seemed so real, so solid, and at the same time, so impossible. What had once seemed like an ordinary place, a simple sewer, now became the center of a mystery that shook even the most incredulous. Suddenly, something moved at the bottom of the hole, and everyone moved away, as if they were facing something they shouldn't challenge. There, at the bottom of the sewer, was what looked like an aged box. Dirty, covered in layers of mud and debris, but clearly a box. It shouldn't have been there. No one knew how or when or why someone would have thrown it there. But there it was. The dog, as if feeling the weight of the moment, slowly approached. It didn't bark, it wasn't agitated. He seemed calm, even serene, as if he were fulfilling a mission he already knew by heart. He didn't approach frantically, as if he were desperate to achieve something. He just seemed expected. People began to crowd around him, and gradually, a growing tension began to take hold of everyone. A mixture of curiosity and fear gripped the crowd. What was inside the box? Why was that dog looking at it so carefully? For him, it was no longer a question of curiosity. He knew he was facing something that was part of him. Something that, perhaps, he had been waiting for all his life. One of the people, an older woman, hesitated for a moment and then decided to take the lead. She was the first to approach the box, her hand shaking. She crouched down and, with a visible effort, began to remove the dirt and debris that covered the box. Time seemed to have slowed down. Every movement, every gesture seemed heavy and charged with hidden meaning. The others watched in silence, their eyes fixed on the scene before them, as if they feared that the simple act of breathing might interfere with the course of events. Finally, after a struggle against time and mud, she managed to open the box. And what was inside, what she found, was something none of them could ever have imagined. Inside the box, covered in scraps of aged paper and other apparently worthless objects, was a collection of photos, letters, and documents. But what really caught everyone's attention was what was on top of everything. A letter, crumpled and torn, but still legible. It was written in a fine, careful handwriting and read simply, "The truth is here, but few will be able to see it." Silence overtook the place. People started whispering among themselves, looking at the letter, but no one knew what it meant. How could something so simple, so apparently banal, provoke such an intense reaction in everyone? At that moment, the dog moved away a little, but not enough to stop watching. He was still there, as if he didn't want to miss a single detail. He knew what was going on. He knew what that letter meant. And somehow he was ready for whatever came next. Meanwhile, people began to rummage through the other items inside the box. The photos showed unknown people, family members that no one recognized. But the letters were different. They spoke of something deeper. They spoke of a hidden past, a secret buried in time, something that had been silenced, forgotten. Each word seemed more important than the last, more enigmatic and full of weight. Everyone was mesmerized. The dog, immune to the human frenzy, remained silent, watching with a calm that seemed unreal in the face of the turmoil around him. He knew that what was happening was bigger than anyone there could understand. Now a new question hung in the air: what to do with the findings? The letters brought information that could change lives, unearth forgotten secrets, or destroy a tranquility built up over the years. But what did they really mean? What did they really represent? And most importantly, why did the dog know all this? Why was he already so close to the answer, while everyone else was only just beginning to understand the depth of what they had found? The muffled sound of the box being closed echoed for a moment, but no one could hear anything else. The scene before them was overwhelmed with tension. The letters, the photos, the enigmatic handwriting, everything there was interconnected in a way that none of them could explain. The air seemed charged with a dense energy, as if time itself was standing still in the face of the revelation that was now about to take place. But the dog didn't move. He stood there firm, his presence more imposing than ever. His eyes fixed on the open hatch, as if waiting for the exact moment when everything would connect. He knew what was coming next. He already knew. In the midst of the suspense, someone from the crowd finally broke the silence. That can't be all. There's something else. Something is missing. The woman, who had been the first to open the box, looked distressed, as if she was being consumed by the need to understand what was going on. She looked at the letters and photos again, but her mind couldn't process all the information at once. Something wasn't right. There was something in the air that didn't make sense. And that's when the dog, with its fixed, deep-set eyes, stepped forward. He didn't bark, he didn't make any sudden movements, but he advanced towards the hatch where it all began, and the people, astonished, followed his footsteps with their eyes. It was as if he was preparing for a crucial moment, as if he was approaching the very turning point of a story that no one else knew how to tell. As he approached the hatch, he stopped and looked down. His breathing was calm, but there was an intensity in the air, an electricity that everyone could feel. What he knew, what he was about to do, no one could predict. The woman standing nearby hesitated. She looked at the dog and then at the hatch. "What does he know that we don't?" she muttered, more to herself than to the others. All eyes were on the hatch, and the sense of mystery and fear only increased by the second. But before anyone could question it further, something started to happen. A slight vibration ran through the floor, a soft sound of metal against metal, as if the hatch was starting to move on its own. The crowd took a step back, fear now evident in everyone's expressions. The dog, for his part, didn't back down. He stood firm, watching as the hatch began to open a little more, revealing a dark crevice below. Then the decisive moment arrived. The hatch opened completely, and what everyone saw, what everyone discovered, was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. At the bottom of the hatch, something glowed. Something shiny, a golden light that seemed to emanate from the bottom of the sewer, from what had been buried there for so many years. But this light wasn't natural. It looked like a flame, but not an ordinary flame of fire. It was like a mystical energy, something that couldn't be explained in simple words. Something beyond human comprehension. And as the seconds passed, more people began to approach. But for some reason, no one dared to go any deeper. The dog didn't move. He still stood there, fixed, attentive, as if all this was just confirmation of something much bigger. It was then that, in an almost instinctive act, the older woman, with trembling hands, advanced towards the opening. She crouched down, and with a careful movement, she reached out to touch what was glowing at the bottom of the hatch. The moment was tense, as if the world itself was waiting for the outcome of this action. The silence was profound. No sound, no breathing, nothing but the beating of rushing hearts. When his fingertips touched the shiny object, the reaction was immediate. The light seemed to pulse, intensifying with every second. The ground shook slightly, and the sound of a voice, distant and muffled, began to be heard. The words were difficult to understand, as if they were being spoken through a layer of water or some kind of dense fog. But deep down, everyone could hear what was being said, albeit in a distorted way. I knew someone would come. I knew the secret would be revealed. The crowd was completely shocked. What did that mean? How was that possible? Who was talking? And most terrifying of all, what did the dog know about all this? He who until then had seemed like just a spectator, now revealed himself as the key to understanding everything. He knew he had always known. And at that moment, everyone was about to discover not only the secret of the sewer, but the secret behind the dog himself. What had he seen? What did he understand that no one else could? As the mysterious voice continued to speak, people began to move away, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to think. And the dog, his eyes fixed, looked at them all as if to say without words, "Now the truth will be revealed." The air was heavy, tense, and the crowd finally dispersed, each carrying with them the same anguishing doubt. What, in fact, did the dog know? What had it seen over all those years, observing the sewer in such a profound, unchanging way, as if it understood something far beyond our perception? They had discovered the secret of the sewer, but that wasn't the end of the story. On the contrary, what everyone there began to realize was that this was only the beginning of an even greater journey. The woman who had touched the shiny object could no longer speak. The words, as if they carried a revelation too dangerous to utter, stuck in her throat. But no matter how hard they tried, no one there could deny what had happened. The dog, with its steady, almost human gaze, seemed to understand something that humans had yet to grasp. He knew that, at that moment, the veil of the unknown had been lifted, but it wasn't an easy knowledge to digest. There was something deeper there, something that would change everyone's life forever. As the sound of the wind hit the trees and night approached, everyone began to move away from the scene, their steps silent, as if they were still processing everything they had witnessed. The truth, that uncompromising and frightening truth, could not be easily forgotten. And the dog, alone, stood there, with the hatch open in front of him. He knew that the real journey had begun, a journey where there was no turning back. What would come next? What secrets lay buried beneath the surface? Somewhere, far away from all this, the dog looked down into the sewer once more, his eyes filled with wisdom. He knew that the questions that arose at that moment could never be fully answered. But one thing was certain: no one would ever see the world in the same way after that night. And although the hatch was open, the real truth remained hidden, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to go through with it. Just for those of you who like a good story and have watched to the end, leave your comment below from which city you're watching, and I'll leave a heart in your comment. Bye, and see you in the next video.